Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 3 of the anime series Death Parade. And this was another really cool episode that really kind of tugged at my heartstrings, and I think most average viewers, will probably be able to share in kind of the plight of, the characters in this episode, the idea of unrequited love. That is, love and interest in someone that is not necessarily returned, having a level of, self-consciousness where you aren't necessarily pleased with your appearance and you think other people would not find you attractive, and all those kinds of aspects are kind of in play in this episode between the two characters who find themselves in Quindecim and having to play a game of bowling. Essentially, these were two young characters, and there's something tragic and bittersweet about kind of, how their story plays out along that line, because, of course, as with all the characters finding themselves in Quindecim, they don't have any memories as to what led them there, and this is something that will have to be revealed every step of the game, very literally in this case. And so, as usual, we have basically Decim explaining to them what they're up against, what they'll have to do. You have the assistant character pretty much, like she did in the OVA, taking her spot next to Decim and counting off all the rules and such like that, and really getting into the part. And even, Decim himself kind of makes a quip, you're getting used to this, aren't you? And I like how the banter between them and the interplay between them is still skirting that edge of she's bringing the heart to this equation, along the lines of things Decim himself isn't necessarily prepared or equipped to understand and rationalize and make sense of in the heart and the emotions of these human characters who are deposited on his doorstep and have to go through this arbitration. And it's interesting because, of course, as this game of bowling unfolds, we're seeing the memory flashbacks of a tragic bus crash. They were both apparently on the bus. I had suspected that they probably were both killed at the same time, because I don't know what it is about the way this episode was set up, but it just gave me that vibe that these two may have had a history of sorts, and I didn't know exactly how. And we're seeing in the flashbacks that they were childhood friends, although there's a level of misdirection which is very clever once again, in, the way your expectations are raised and then they're kind of dashed, and even the expectations of the characters themselves are raised in that, we think this is one friend of his from childhood who had moved away, and in fact, no, it wasn't. It wasn't this Chisato at all, that Miura, was the guy's name, had grown up with and had been really friendly with and wanted to catch up with again. I find it very intriguing that in looking to reconnect with this Chisato character who had moved away, little did he know, because he had, been away for so long, that this was his other friend, sort of the wallflower of the group, I guess you could say, who really didn't think of herself as being attractive to him, wanted to more embody what she envisioned he probably sought after, that being the looks of the Chisato character, who we can only assume that, in the case of this girl in this episode, I don't know if we ever actually catch her real name in the flashbacks. I do hear them referring to Mai, and I don't know if that was actually supposed to be a, sort of nickname for Miura, or if it was her real name. But in any case, you basically have a situation where she's trying to raise herself to her ill-perceived ideals of what he must be looking for, what would attract him. The interesting thing is, this actually works. They travel, he and his buddies travel to, of all things, a bowling alley that she happens to work in, because he's actually fancying her, and he doesn't even realize, that he knows who she assumes herself to be, or makes herself out to be, this Chisato character. He doesn't even have that recollection, and as we're getting the flashbacks, essentially his buddies are calling that into question. And there was some talk about, her getting surgery, and I was wondering if this was going to be like the Crying Game kind of situation, where it was, a male friend of his or something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It would have been equally compelling, I think, but it warmed my heart by the end that, especially with the assistants getting involved with Deckham's, oh, I'll give him 5 minutes for the date after the game is over and everything, because they made that bet between themselves that they would have a date, they would spend some time with each other, and we get to see them enjoy themselves because the assistant, basically grabbed Deckham by the throat and was like, no, 5 minutes is not enough for these two. And so that's where the bittersweetness comes in, because they finally achieved a mutual happiness, a mutual affection for each other. They were able to express that to each other beyond this mortal coil. And I loved that. I loved, the entirety of sort of the clips of what they were doing in that time during the end credits and everything after they've actually gone into the elevators and moved on. I was actually looking very pointedly at the iconography and the colorizations of the two elevators, and I had begun to think that she probably entered the one leading to the void, and that he probably got reincarnated, or heaven and hell, whatever you want to call it. Very intriguingly, we've had references to reincarnation and or being sent to the void, and in this episode, Deckham describes it as heaven and hell. I know that there is iconography, I've noted it, and other people have noted it, that, sort of range across the religious gamut from Buddhism to, Christianity and such like that. So I guess maybe it depends on the sort of theology that is accepted to the characters themselves who find themselves in this realm. Maybe it's just, describing what's to come next on a level playing field that they will understand. I don't know exactly, but it did have me curious, of these two, who is moving forward, for lack of a better term, and who is moving backward, because when they do enter the elevators, we see that in the revelation of her having plastic surgery to beautify herself, which really is a tragedy. I mean, anyone who thinks of themselves so badly that they want to get under a knife and distort what they naturally look like, I hate that. That really upsets me. People getting liposuction, people getting plastic surgery, and all of this kind of stuff. It's a really tragic path in life to choose. And we kind of see her face, slumping as she's in this elevator. And I don't know if that's meant to imply that she's heading toward the void or heading toward hell or whatever that is, and he gets to move on or what have you, I don't know if there's lessons to be learned or implied that, if you risk your own bodily health and you mutilate yourself and you try to beautify yourself in these ways, you are kind of, leaning toward a sense of evil or something. And with his pure of heart and connecting with her and wanting to connect with her and spend time with her on this date toward the end of the episode, was he the good-hearted and thus, gifted or rewarded with going to heaven or moving on? These are definitely questions that will hang over my head with this episode, and it just really compelled me. That's what it left me with by the end. This series has done that, and I really am just curious to learn more. I kind of hope we get to learn more about what, the decision-making process of where to send these people, what that all amounts to, and, things like that, what these iconographies mean. Do they just stand to be a generalization along religious lines, or is there actually something more to it? And so, yeah, I mean, by the end of it, it's something that I think people can largely relate to in this episode, and thus feel emotions for these characters, seeing that they were able to come together, seeing that they both had grown to feel the same way about each other. And she was very timid and nervous, this character, again, whose name I'm not sure if we actually got, but it was just really meaningful and impactful, and it's almost sad that it had to be broken apart. I found myself wondering, why couldn't the rules have been broken and send them both off together kind of situation, rather than one has to go up and one has to go down? And it begs the question to me in further episodes to come, will that ever maybe enter the fray in this particular series? Will we see like this assistant character maybe pushing the envelope of what is the norm, what is the status quo in this environment? I think that would be highly, highly intriguing and compelling. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 3 of Death Parade, if you've seen it. Highly recommend you check this series out if you haven't. And, booyah. Let's go on to the next one. Otherwise, I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you later. Peace.